I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. My colleague, friend, and co-host Larry Kudlow joins me, fresh from the Kudlow Report at CNBC. And Larry welcomed Governor Rick Perry of Texas to the Kudlow Report tonight, and they had a colloquy about foreign policy, about the future, but especially about energy in the United States, and energy as part of a potential Rick Perry for president run in 2016. And that's I'd say the intersection of what we know is going on in Europe right now, which is the G7, less China, Russia, the old G8, the G7, and the president headed to Brussels to make what we're told in the Washington Post will be a signal speech on the European quandary, the crisis in Ukraine these last days. Larry, a very good evening to you. Rick Perry is a presidential candidate. He's got Potomac fever. I understand that. And there are many issues we can explore. But tonight, Rick Perry hit upon a story that we know very well. It's about energy and Texas and the revival of the oil fields and the natural gas fields in Texas because of hydrofracking and the growth of Texas's economy and the jobs these last years. But Governor Perry went farther. He pointed to the fact that the United States of America is an energy superpower that has the energy that Europe needs. And Europe's obedience to President Putin's aggression is because of his energy. That is a point that it's very well taken, and I don't have expectation that the Democrats can answer it in 2016. Good evening to you, Larry.
Good evening, John. And I think you're right. I don't think the Democrats have an answer to it, and I think that's a big problem. What Governor Perry said tonight was very interesting to me. He said basically, you take what's going on in the U.S. with the energy revolution from fracking, and you add to that Canada, and you add to that Mexico. By the way, he made a point of talking about Mexico and the expansion of their oil fields, which is going to supply jobs and bring Mexican workers back to Mexico. But he said between those three countries, they will have more oil and gas than anybody on the earth, including the Middle East, and will be able to supply Europe with plenty of it in order to get them out from under the yoke of the Russian threat, which is really based on gas. And I asked him, it was interesting, because Obama has not talked about gas except until yesterday, when his administration finally gave a permit to an outfit in Oregon, which is a liquid natural gas for export company. And that's the first time that Obama has said that, and a lot of us, including me, thought he wouldn't go there because of the environmentalists on the left, but he did. So I asked Rick Perry about this, and he said, we don't really need 25 or 35 more. We have enough LNG operations to be able to supply Europe and whoever. And that really caught my attention, because I have been led to believe that we can do more and we should do more. He said, we have it already, and now with this operation in Oregon, we're going to have plenty of it. The question is just making that point. And that's his answer to Putin. I said, how would a President Perry right now deal with the Vladimir Putin threat? And that was his answer. That was his principal answer.
He also pointed to Keystone XL pipeline.
Right.
He said, build the pipeline. We've talked about that for years, Larry. And President Obama does not have an answer to Governor Perry tonight. And Mrs. Clinton does not have an answer, because she has not been very clear about the Keystone XL pipeline. It is a part of the Democratic Party's writ that it will not go forward and make a clear decision because of the progressive wing, because of its refusal to acknowledge that hydrocarbons are part of this nation's economy. Governor Perry doesn't apologize for that. Mr. Obama has not spoken clearly about it. He's fussed with the issue, but he's not spoken clearly. And Mrs. Clinton, she's the opponent that every presidential candidate now has to measure himself against. That was Governor Perry's strength tonight. He's anticipating what will Mrs. Clinton say about energy.
Well, I think you're right. I think you're right to some extent. I think the other part of the Perry story is the so-called Texas red state economic model, which has supplied about 30% of the jobs to this country in the last 10 years. And they're pretty high-paid jobs. And what did he say? 95% of them are above the minimum wage. So I think that The red state model of low tax, low regulate, pro-business is his other calling card. And no one has done it better than Texas, and he's been around the country, as you know. He's been to New York and California and Illinois and elsewhere, telling businesses to come relocate in Texas. He's not bashful about it. He's run ads on it when he goes into a state. And in fact, he tried to talk me into moving to Texas. We were in the makeup room earlier before we went on set. So he's very strong on this pro-growth, pro-jobs. He's a states' rights guy, first and foremost. He said that several times. He wants the health care to be changed so it becomes, so it's run by the states. He believes that's where the social programs and the education programs are. Leave us alone. Let the states do it. So that plus the energy, which all dovetails into an economic growth message, is very powerful.
The response was from Governor Howard Dean, who was on your show tonight, and I thought it was very well taken. Howard Dean is always well prepared. He said, Governor Perry does not lead a successful state, and then he reeled off a number of statistics about children uninsured, children not in school, low-wage jobs. And that would be the Democratic response to a Rick Perry for president run.
Well, I would guess so. Howard is probably right about the kids, but Christopher Ruddy of Newsmax pointed out that all the big states have that problem where you have young kids uninsured. That goes to the question, John, of family breakup and lack of money and dependence on the federal government. And so I'm not sure if that's a fair criticism. Governor Dean, whom I like very much, and it was very kind to me this evening, he was wrong about the low-pay jobs. I mean, as a fact, Texas is producing high-pay jobs. Look, all this energy stuff we're talking about are very high-pay jobs. I mean, you're talking about, $80 to $100 an hour type jobs. And the other point I'd make is in Texas, the other great fledgling industry is technology, high tech, where years ago it was just Michael Dell up in Austin, but Austin has become just like Silicon Valley, and those are high-paying jobs as well. So we're not talking about dirt farmers here. We're talking about a very modern state.
And Silicon Valley is migrating to Austin, Texas. All the time we hear talk about Apple moving people down to Austin from California. The other example, of course, that mentioned in the colloquy with Governor Perry and others was that California does not compare very well at all with Texas these last years of job growth. Larry Kudlow of Kudlow Reports. We're going to turn to Steve Moore of the Heritage Foundation next. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.